Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. So many things run across my mind, and I keep on thinking, okay, I should pick up the mic and do a podcast. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you know what, forget it, because that singular thought can be ended in just 3 lines. And even if I have to put other thoughts in that podcast, I would have no relationship whatsoever. So that's why most of the time I just, leave it. For example, even when I am talking about a certain subject, I tend to forget some of the points, some of the key points, that actually made me pick up the mic in the first place. But it's weird. For example, even when I was talking about the nose rings and the sizes and the nose pins and all, you know, again, as I said, I do realize that everybody's got a different nose shape and a different nose size, and it depends on the height of the piercing as well. But that is why I didn't talk much on the nose rings, because the nose rings diameter depends on that, but not the nose pin stem, as in their post, as in the long stick, on the inside of the nose. Because again, it doesn't matter how big or small your nose is, it has to have a snug fit so that it shouldn't irritate you or disturb you in any way. So, similarly, when I was talking about my books 2 podcasts ago, there was a little fun fact that I could have added, but I was like, why bother? Not even why bother, I literally, totally, completely forgot. Because I hardly talk much about my books. In fact, I don't even give my books to anybody unless they ask for it. And as you know, the Desi mentality, the people in the subcontinent, they would rather get books for free. They would rather spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees on superficial stuff just to be able to show off in front of the world, like shoes and bags and accessories and clothes and makeup and hair and skincare and all that stuff. But they wouldn't spend even 1,000 rupees on a book. Yes, imagine. So, and then you wonder about the literacy rate. So, the the books, well, so I don't actually, but people always, whenever people find out that you've published a book or something, then they come in and say, oh, why didn't you give us a copy? I actually don't have copies, as in what I have are, the copies that writers get for proofreading, to get out mistakes and to finalize and to fix anything else that needs to be fixed before you do the final edit. So I've got those, which means that those are full of mistakes and they are not your professional final published material. So they look on the surface as if they're your final published material, but inside, when you will open them and start reading, you will see typos, you will see grammar mistakes, maybe you will see maybe spacing mistakes, although that's rare, and or you can see maybe the paper, that the paper is wrong. For example, it's you want a cream paper, you get a newspaper finish, or things like that. I mean, it is basically just for the writers. When you publish, especially when you're an indie author, which means you're doing self-publishing, then the websites like Amazon, Kindle, Create Space at one point, which is now merged with Kindle, because that's where I started publishing, at Create Space. So then it merged with Kindle, so I'm stuck with Kindle, but I use Smashwords and as well, because I prefer Smashwords. Unfortunately, Smashwords is only for ebooks, not for actual hard copies. That is one of the reasons I'm stuck with Amazon. But now more and more writers from this region have realized this, and these are people who are extremely good in marketing. So they have realized that yes, I am not making any mistakes in my marketing. It's just that Amazon is very, very biased, it seems, when it comes to its writers. It has more and more facilities for its American writers, and in fact, even many of the European countries don't get to use the marketing tools the way they should, because they don't have the facilities. And if you're in Pakistan, forget all about it, because you're officially not even part of the market. And Amazon India also, despite the fact that it should have a lot of facilities, but I think they might, I don't know about them, but they might struggle a little too. I do know that the most part of books that do get sold on Amazon get sold on India platform, Japanese platform, and yeah, mainly, and one or two other different countries platforms. That just shows you how the Amazon algorithm is very biased. also, as I've talked about this right at the start when I began my podcast and when I shared some of my interviews, and those those who have heard would have heard that I have talked about the problems that we face, because the fact that you think that, oh, it's Amazon, it's a huge company, or it's another book marketing company or anything, they will not go to these lengths, but they actually do. They do have that sort of a weird sort of a cancel culture where as soon as they see that a book does not agree with the American narrative or the American political viewpoint, or so they will kind of make it disappear from the regular views. So, and because, as I know, because this is one of the biggest complaints I've had from people, those who do manage to come across my books, they're like, why aren't you marketing it? Why isn't it out there? Why can't we see it? And I'm like, listen, first of all, being in Pakistan, I don't have access to those marketing tools, that Amazon seems to give to, especially its American writers and some of its European writers. And I'm like, number two, I don't know. It's some sort of a bias that it seems that Amazon has with writers from this region, and even from Africa, South Africa, and West Africa, writers have complained about that, about having the same problems. So yeah. So we're stuck here because we don't have much of a greater platform in Pakistan, and I actually wanted to publish my books in Pakistan, but I was discouraged by the publishers because at that time, Zardari was the president and he had completely screwed up the publishing industry. Big publishers that had come from abroad and Pakistani publishers, they worked abroad, they lived abroad, and they came from abroad and they opened these big publishing companies, and he screwed everything. So the publishers were like, don't waste your money here, don't waste your money, because in Pakistan, there is no traditional publishing the way it is in Europe or America. So in Pakistan, your publishers are basically your glorified printers. You still have to pay them. You pay them, they publish your books, and then you're left to do the marketing. How can you do the marketing on your own? And so that's why even the publishers were like, it's not worth it. You're spending lakhs of rupees and you're going to publish your book, and then you're going to go to the markets. And right now, Zardari has completely all but closed down the book market. So it's useless, don't waste your money. And that's why I had to self-publish on Create Space, and later on, as I said, it merged with Amazon Kindle, so I got stuck there. But believe me, Kindle is not a very very writer friendly for most regions. So, and as I said, there have been people who, my former students, who later on became writers, and as I said, they're extremely good in marketing. They're actually known as marketing gurus in their fields, and they have suffered at the hands of Amazon as well. And they also then finally said to me that, yeah, you know what, yeah, you're right, because you see, they kept on telling me, ma'am, why aren't you marketing your books? Do this, do that, do this, do that. I'm like, you know what, guess what, I've done all of it. It doesn't work. And when they reached that point, they understood what I was saying, and they were like, yeah, Amazon is disappointing, it's absolutely useless you know so yeah, so I mean, but as I was saying, my books are actually, I don't share them with people, but the point is that the very few people who do come across them, for some, I'm very, very, very pleasantly surprised, and I appreciate it a lot that they actually loved my books so much that they literally sought me out. Those few readers, they literally sought me out. Many of them have become friends of mine, actually. Some are Americans, and some are Pakistanis, and some are, yeah, I mean, most of them are overseas and based in America. Can you believe it? And they literally reached out to me and they liked my books, and then they gave feedback, which is what I used on my second book, by the way. It's all that feedback from the first part of the two-part series, that I poured into the second part. So they really made my day, is what I'm saying, by telling me how much they liked it and this and that, despite the fact that my first edition, despite all the careful, meticulous errors and typos and everything that I removed, still ended up with mistakes, and that's very embarrassing. But the good part about being an indie publisher or an indie writer and using Kindle is that I re-edited the whole thing all over again, uh, you know, with an editor, who was a former student of mine, and she very gladly agreed because she was learning at that point. She had begun, learning all about editing and this and that. And I was like, okay, you know what, consider it a training session as well, and at the same time, branch out. And yeah, she really worked hard on both the first part and the second part of the books, and made it she made them what they are today. So she was very meticulous. And so, then I had to unpublish the first part. But I mean, the fact that people, very older people, and who at that time were in their 40s, mid 40s, and they reached out to me, and they appreciated it and they liked it, despite the fact that it had all these mistakes, which I'm so embarrassed about because I'm essentially a perfectionist. And I just cannot believe that despite the fact that I checked and rechecked and fixed everything, still somehow the other, those errors, those mistakes, those typos, they appeared. I'm so glad that the editor fixed it for me at the end, my former student. Yeah. So, yeah, so then the third book that I published, I again got the help of an editor. Again, this time I was just not making any I wasn't giving it any opportunity for any mistakes whatsoever. So I wasn't taking any chances. So went through the whole thing meticulously again and again, although I would have preferred my first editor to be honest, because I worked with her and I trusted her and all. But this was a friend of hers, who was pretty good, just as good, very meticulously good as well. So that's how the third one got published. But yeah, the Mist series was actually very popular, despite the fact that, as I said, it has very, very, very little, very few readership. But the I think it is in a way, it is a fun part that, not only did it get its own review in the newspaper, in the local newspaper, which isn't, but it, or the national newspaper, whatever you like to call it, but also some of the readers that, one or two of the readers who were Pakistani in origin, when they bought the book, they were Pakistani in origin, but they were overseas Pakistanis based in America. So they literally told me that they shared that book with the then army personnel. I mean, there were people who were in the army, as in they were at that point serving in the army, and they said that they shared those books with them, and that they loved it too, which is a bit. I mean, in a way, it's not surprising because it's not like I dished the army, or I was going to say dissed the army, and I wanted to say sorry, is that I dissed. It's not like I dissed the army, but I did very openly talk about the two factions of the army. The pro Pakistani ones, and how they were working behind the scenes to ensure that Imran Khan this time, won the elections legitimately, and that the elections didn't get hijacked again. And then there was the other part, and how they were cohesively behind the scenes, not just in interfering with politics, but also in taking care of networking and taking care of, conspiracies from all over the world, and dealing with information and disinformation, misinformation, all that jazz. So I think they appreciated it, that somebody finally wrote, in an unbiased way, about the inside workings and the inside struggles, and the sort of the fight between the two factions, you can say, the ongoing struggle between the two factions. So yeah, the I think, I don't know, but I was, yeah, so I appreciated the fact that there were people in the army actually who even liked my books at that time. But now, seriously, what they are, the fact that the other faction has taken over and the pro Pakistani faction are completely at their wits end at this moment, doesn't make it any how do I say, it doesn't make me happy. So I'm not going to be happy that, all I can say is that, okay, I'm glad that some of those, who were then serving in the army, and then maybe later on, and some who were retired actually from the army, and who worked with the intelligence at that time, but they had retired, that they also appreciated my books. So that actually made me feel that, okay, mature adult people who are in their 40s and in their 50s, they actually, thought of my book as worth the read, you know. And this was a book that I wrote, I'm saying, like over 17, 18 years ago, at least 17 years ago, right? Um, so yeah, I think it was a pleasant surprise. The fact that my nephew, especially the younger nephew, who's not at all interested in books and reading, I think just because he found out that these were my books that I had written, he actively took an interest and decided to read them, which I think is very, very generous of him. And I was kind of surprised because, as I said, I don't push my books on others. I don't even gift my books to others. And I don't, because, first of all, I have writer's copies. They're not your finished, completely edited, completely, finalized. These are copies that have errors and all. And even when I give it to people, for example, the university that I worked at, they encouraged me to give a copy to the library. And the librarian was, because he had just freshly learned all about the tagging and how the archiving of books and how the whatever the barcodes and this and that, how they use that in the library to store and to shelve and to archive and this and that. And he was like, your book is also missing a barcode and all. I'm like, number one, in indie publishing, barcode is not even required. Number two, I do have a barcode. Number three, this is my own personal writer's copy. It has errors, it has mistakes, because this is not your finished book. I'm just giving you my own personal copy. And then he was surprised and he kept quiet. So that was the thing. First of all, you're telling me to give you a copy of mine, and then you're trying to tell me that was my own personal copy. All the books that I have with me are my own personal copies that writers get in order to do a final edit. So they will have errors, they will have mistakes, they will have no barcode because they're writers copies, and they will have, although you can get the one with barcode too, but I mean, it really depends at which stage your book is at when you're getting those copies. It's usually at this final stage, in the sense that it is ready to go, it's ready to publish. You just have to take one final look before you okay it. And the problem is that, because I would get them directly from America via post, it would take a very long time. And the second time round, I literally had to pay double taxes. Like, I paid taxes from the American side, in the sense that when the taxes that you were due for from their post office, and then again I had to pay taxes upon receiving. So I paid double taxes. After that, I never ordered author copies ever again, of none of my books. The only book that I did that with was my first one. The other two books, in fact, the other four books, I'm including the journals and the diaries there. Yes, because I have recently also published a journal, which is a complete journal. It's not like those diaries that come where you don't have ample space to do anything. You just have one or two pages for calendar based activities, and then it's all names and addresses, and then you have just a few blocks here and there to fit your tiny notes in. It's not like that. There's ample space for every single thing that you would require in a diary. And then at the same time, there's also a logbook that I published, and that logbook was actually because when we pay our bills online and we still want some sort of a record of all the bills that we're paid, and you make these columns on sheets of papers, or you get a copy, an exercise book, whatever, make some columns and write those bills down, and the number of the day of them, and the number, the different months of the year, and you tick against them that it paid, or credit or debit or whatever. So I was like, yeah, what, there ought to be a book like that, a proper logbook for all of that. And again, that logbook is complete. It's not just for bill and budgeting. It has other things in it that you would need. And these books are made in such a way that they can last you up to 2 years, okay? Because, hello, let's think sustainability. Let's think long term. So yeah, the kind of books, the kind of journals, or the kind of diaries, or the kind of logbooks that I would like and that I can't find is what I made. So yeah, I never even ordered author copies for those. Yeah. And unfortunately, again, I cannot easily place them in Pakistan market, because officially Pakistan is not part of the market. So that's the worst part, because I know, because again, I had given one of the old book shopkeepers, who was like the major bookshop in Anarkali, near Urdu Bazaar, where we would always go to get all our books. He had old and new books, secondhand, as in secondhand and brand new, and of every single variety possible. And we built our whole book collection based on his shop, as in we bought from his shop. And so when I published my book and when I got the author copy, I went there and I gave him a personal copy of mine. I think he didn't realize that I was giving him my personal copy as a gift, because the next time I met him, he's like, "Guess what? Your book got sold, you know?" And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "That was a copy for you." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "It was a personal copy. It had so many errors and mistakes because it was an author copy, to check for mistakes. So I just decided to gift you one." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Well, but it got sold and it got sold at full price, you know?" So yeah, got had to pause for a moment because my mom just came in. So yeah, where was I? Well, I mean, yeah, just rambling about my books and all. That's all. And I was just thinking actually about many things. I was just thinking about the fact that this is how basically, I guess this is where luck plays a lot, because okay, let's be honest, most of these so-called indie best writers in the indie publishing part and all, to be honest, they also have a lot of help. Don't think that it's organic. It was never organic. It took a lot of money, it took a lot of finances, and it took a lot of support and a lot of help from friends and family as well. People who would literally, just to support you, go on Amazon, buy your books, and pen down a review, because they know that without reviews it won't grow. And if it won't, it's a chicken and an egg sort of a thing on Amazon with reviews. So I didn't even have the I mean, I couldn't even tell my relatives that, okay, you know what, at least go on Amazon. Because, again, first of all, for people in Pakistan, buying on Amazon, especially at that time, was next to impossible. If so many people, actually, some of my students, even who ordered my books, they literally had to go online, and then when they tried to order, it wouldn't go through. Then they would tell their friends or family in America to order for them and then post it to them in Pakistan. So it was a tedious problem. So you wouldn't ask anybody in Pakistan to buy your book from Amazon. It's as simple as that. Which is why, as I said, I prefer Smashwords, where it's ebooks. They can easily just download it, and it's Pakistan friendly, and they can pay in local rupees and everything. And I fixed the money, by the way. I haven't allowed the money to fluctuate with the dollar on Smashwords. So it's in rupees. You will get it in rupees, and it's not affected by dollar exchange rate. These are the kind of facilities that you can say I kind of try to provide for the local people in Pakistan. Whereas overseas are concerned, if they have no problems either way in any case. But yeah, I mean, I guess, as I said, it's a lot of support and a lot of luck, both of which you could say I do not have. Because, as I said, I wouldn't go around asking people to support me. And the kind of people, as I said, the kind of people that we have in the subcontinent, they would rather you gift them the book for free, than actually buy a book. Although it's funny, because when I published my very, very first book as a teenager, and that time I didn't even do any marketing, and that time it was again local publishing, and that time you had no social media, you had no internet and nothing. This is like the 90s, okay? And weirdly enough, that time I sold a huge amount of my books, just like that. My teachers would come and they'd say, "Give me your book," and they would pay me. And then my friends would come and they would say, "Just give me your book," and they would pay. And then when I went to college, for some odd, one of my friends found out that I had published a book, and she's like, give it to me," and I give it to her. She wanted to pay me, but I refused. But then somehow she liked it so much, and then the word spread, and then so many seniors and my own batchmates in college, they came to me and they were like, "Oh, you know what? We read that book. It was amazing." And I'm like, "It's for kids." And they're like, "Yeah, but that's the best part. It was especially for girls. Like, we could give it to our nieces and they could enjoy. I mean, who writes books that that actually girls can enjoy, and these are adventure. It's an adventure story, but the protagonists are girls, and we loved it." So many people came and bought again from me, and it went on and on for years, where anybody would find out, they would come and buy the book from me. And again, that book, if you look at it seriously, it does not look like a like a perfect book that has been published, if you know what I mean. It literally, it wasn't cut well. I mean, the publishers, they did a very bad job. They did a bad job with the paper, with the finishing, with the cutting. And the cutting as in they cut it not even straight. Many of the books, they're not even cut straight, they cut it at a slant. Okay. But still people didn't care. People just didn't care what the book looked like. They didn't care that the printers had, when they retyped my whole manuscript that they made on butter paper, that's how they do it. They first retype everything on butter paper, then they use it on the publishing paper, which they chose the newspaper paper instead of the regular cream paper. And then, well, whatever. So they made a lot of typing errors, despite the fact that there were no such errors in the original manuscript. All of that was put aside, and people just kept on buying the books from me, for many years to come. So that was, again, a very, very pleasant surprise. But now, as I said, now people, they would rather get a book for free than want to buy it. It doesn't matter who it is or whose book it is. Even if it's a famous author, if it's something that they can show off or they want to show off, because unfortunately in Pakistan, reading is not what it used to be in our time. Even in our time in Pakistan, we had a lot of avid readers, and we had groups of avid readers, and we were very, very passionate about our books, and we exchanged them, and we were very careful and respectful and everything. But there is now this weird ass book culture thing, which is, it's supposed to be some elitist thing. It's again something that you're getting into in order to show off to a particular kind of a group or a particular kind of a whatever. You know what I'm saying, right? It's again some sort of a I forgot the word. There was a specific word we used to use for such things, for such cases, where you pick up a hobby just to fit into a particular group in order to, and it's always an elitist sort of a group. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I'm no longer part of. In fact, I never was part of any of such groups, but also why it discouraged me from talking about my books or from even telling people that I write books. I actually don't tell people I write books, or that I've published about total 6 books, that I have about 40 books that are just sitting around ready to be published. Yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying that the experience that has taught me that actually there's nothing wrong with my books. There's nothing wrong with the quality of my books, because whoever has read it, they have, and these are people who don't know me. People who don't know me, they've reached out just to tell me how they loved my books. And that in itself was a huge boost. So, when I don't exactly get depressed about the fact that I worked so hard on my books and that people like them and still I'm not selling. You know what I'm saying? I still don't get depressed about that. What I see is that, okay, at least I know that there is nothing wrong with my books. At least the few people who have read my books have literally found me just to reach out to me, just to tell me what they thought about my books and how they liked it. And that is validation enough, rather than me sitting on a bestsellers list that I know I didn't actually deserve, but that I got because I used connections, or I used money, or I had a lot of family and friends support that raved about my books, boosting its algorithm on Amazon and other sites by, meticulously writing reviews. And where over here nobody, actually very few people who I reached out to and I asked them to give their honest reviews, they actually gave. And some reviews on Amazon, actually, I didn't even ask for them. They were just people who went, they read my books, they liked it, they reviewed. And I'm most thankful for that, because I know it's genuine. That's the main thing. As long as it's genuine, it's fine. That's all I'm saying. Right. Well, this is me signing out, since I've rambled so much, and I have made 2 of my key points that I forgot, but there were other points that were going around my head on different subjects and different topics that I've totally forgotten now. So this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.